Let's return to the G20 because on the fringes, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has met with China's leader Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the G20 summit. It marks the first time in more than 6 years that a British Prime Minister has met with President Xi. Keir Starmer said that a strong UK-China relationship is important for both of our countries and for the broader international community. China's leader said that the two countries would break new ground in their relationship amid a changing world. Well, earlier I asked Dr. Zhu Jia, the Senior Research Fellow on China at the Asia-Pacific Programme at Chatham House, just how significant today's meeting is.
Obviously, it's something quite critical for UK-China relations, given that the last senior leader meeting between the Chinese president and British Prime Minister was really back to January 2018. So it has been more than 6 years. The two national leaders have not really speak with each other. So I think this really marked the beginning that, to say, the bilateral relations between Beijing and London.
What do you think the key areas that both sides are likely to want to exploit?
Well, I think there's a couple of areas in here. And firstly, foremost, obviously, the Labour government has really put prosperity at heart of its election mandate, and hence trying to deliver that sense of prosperity, and hence somehow reset its relationship with the world's second largest economy is, of course, hugely important. But I think, on the other hand, the remaining thorny issues towards Hong Kong, towards Xinjiang, and towards human rights have not really gone away. So I think it's a meeting that mix between, on the one hand, expecting a sense of reset, but then on the other hand, they also speak with each other, quite frankly, on the thorny issues at the same time.
On those thorny issues, I mean, how do you address things like human rights abuses, the Uyghurs, or the cyber attacks China is accused of? What happens to those areas when there are other areas that those two countries want to make progress on?
Well, I think it seems to be quite difficult so far. So, not judging from the readout given by both sides, the tone of the engagement, the tone of the conversation seems to be positive. But when it comes to specifics, it seems the thorny issues have not really reached any agreement at all. And I wouldn't say either side has moved a needle ahead on those thorny issues.
In terms of unpredictability, for both leaders, trying to look at the White House, Washington, the US, and trying to figure out what happens after January, how important is that element of things?
Well, I think it's a hugely important. I mean, judging really from the potential appointees that Donald Trump is going to get in terms of guiding his China policy, it will be quite hawkish. So China has every single incentive of work towards and together a better relationship with every single American allies. And somehow this would ease the pressure for international trade. But then I think, on the other hand, this has also been quite difficult for the British government at the same time, really, if the United States is going to adding extra pressure for the UK to be in line with the United States on the China policy. I think that sense of reset, that sense of positive momentum Keir Starmer is looking to engage with Beijing, perhaps will be discounted in this case.
Do you think there's a route for the UK to navigate and exploit, because you have Donald Trump talking about these tariffs with China, with the EU, the UK now outside of the EU? Do you think there's a path in there that the UK can exploit to their advantage?
I think so. I mean, this is really because of a particular economic structure of the UK that is a service-oriented economy. So it's less about good tariffs on goods, but instead, I think there's quite a lot of complementarity between China and UK in terms of its own economy. So I won't be surprised that both countries will come up with some kind of a special agreement on trading services on the one hand. However, I think the overall trajectory, the overall pressure that the United States will give to UK to be in alignment on its China policy will remains to be there.